and welcome to Kitchen Underground. I'm Audrey, and I'm going to show you how to make fresh and delicious food Boulder style. We're going to make pumpkin oat muffins along with some fresh Brazil nut milk. So let's get started. Recently, nut milk seems to be selling like crazy. And instead of buying it, you can easily just make it yourself. It takes about 5 minutes total. So today we're going to make some Brazil nut milk, which you can easily transfer into any other kind of nuts, like almonds, cashews, even pumpkin seeds. So let's get a little more familiar with our Brazil nuts. Sometimes Brazil nuts get a bad rap because they contain high levels of selenium. There is such a thing as selenium poisoning, but in really small amounts, it's really good for you. It's actually essential to your body in trace amounts. Along with being an excellent source of vitamin E, they're also really high in monounsaturated fatty acids. This is going to lower the bad cholesterol and raise your good cholesterol. So if you eat a few a day, they're great for you. And in the milk we're going to make, they taste delicious. Pumpkins are really high in dietary fiber, but that's not the only thing. They also have really high levels of vitamin A, which is great for not only our sight, but also for our skin. So today we're going to make them into some pumpkin oat muffins, which is a great treat for breakfast or even an afternoon snack. Now that we're a little more familiar with our ingredients, let's get started. While both of our recipes today are quite simple to make and don't take a lot of time, it's really the prep that takes a little more time, the roasting of the pumpkin and also the soaking of the nuts. The nuts needs to soak for at least 4 hours or overnight, so it's something that you need to do in advance, but once you've done it, it takes a total of 5 minutes to finish. So let's get started with our pumpkin. We're going to cut it and roast it for about an hour and let it cool. This is also something that you can do the night before and then come back to the next morning after it's already been roasted. First, we're going to turn our oven on. We're going to turn it to 375 and roast it for about an hour. This also depends on how big your pie pumpkin is. What we're going to do is just slice the pumpkin in half and scrape out all the seeds. Then we're going to put it facing down on a baking sheet with about an inch or two of water, and then we're going to bake it off. I like to save the seeds, wash them, let them dry, and then bake them off with a little bit of salt and chili powder. It's a delicious snack. Now that we have our pumpkin all seeded and scraped, we're going to stick it in the oven. It's been an hour, so let's check on our pumpkin. When we pull our pumpkin out, our fingers should just melt right in, and it should be soft once we mash it up. So let's see how it's doing. It's looking good, and it's smelling even better. So we're gonna let it cool for about a half an hour so it's not burning hot when we mash it into our mixture. Once your pumpkin is cool, we're gonna take it out of the skin and mash it up. It should be so soft that it peels right away from the skin. And you want it to be about the texture of baby food, like a pumpkin puree. I like to just simply mash it with a fork. If it's soft enough, it should work really well. Next, we're gonna start measuring out our ingredients for our pumpkin muffins. But first of all, we're gonna set the oven down to 350. First off, we're gonna measure out our sugar. I like to use evaporated cane juice. Now, it's still a sugar, but it's not quite as processed as white sugar. You can see it's kind of in a crystallized form. For this recipe, we're going to use 1 cup. Now we're going to use 1 cup of our pumpkin puree. Now, if you're kind of short on time or you just don't have a pumpkin on hand, you can always use pumpkin puree in a can. Now we're going to mix this for about 30 seconds and then add a half a cup of coconut oil. After you add the oil, you want to mix it until the oil is fully incorporated. Otherwise, once the muffin batter is completely mixed, it's going to separate from the rest of it. That's good. Next, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of flax meal. Now, you'll notice a difference if you add the flax meal with your wet ingredients or if you add them with your dry. When you add them with your wet ingredients, it gives the flax seeds time to activate and it'll make the batter thicker. If you add them with your dry ingredients, you have a much soupier batter. So we're going to add them now after our oil, along with 2 teaspoons of vanilla. For our dry ingredients, we're going to add 2 cups of oat flour. I like to use the gluten-free one. 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of allspice, a half a teaspoon of ginger, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cloves. Then we're going to whisk them all together. If you have a sifter, that's even better. It'll get out all the lumps. Then we're going to add it to our wet ingredients. Now, the last things we need to add to our wet ingredients are 3 tablespoons of water and 3 tablespoons of maple syrup. Now we're going to mix it all together and add our dry ingredients. oven to 350, we're gonna oil our pan. I like to brush some coconut oil on it. Once your batter's ready, make sure you give it a good scrape to make sure everything off the bottom is incorporated. Next, we're gonna put it into our muffin sheet pan. It's time to make our crunch filling. We're gonna use oatmeal, maple syrup, a little bit of coconut oil, and a few tablespoons of sugar. So we're gonna do a half a cup of oats, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, and 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Next, we're gonna poke a little hole in the top of the muffin and put a teaspoon of our crunch batter into the muffin. Now that we have our batter and our crunch in the pan, we're gonna stick it in the oven for 35 minutes. Now it's time to make our nut milk. I've been soaking these Brazil nuts for about 6 hours, so you can soak them at least 4 hours. Overnight is preferable. And I just put 1 cup of these and fill them over the top with cold water. Now we're gonna simply uncover them and rinse them with cold water. Next, we're gonna stick them in our blender with 4 cups of cold water. Next, we're gonna blend it on medium for about 60 seconds. This is a nut milk bag. You can buy them on Amazon or just at your local culinary store. We're gonna place it in a pitcher or a bowl, tighten it. Then we're gonna pour our nut milk in. We're gonna strain it and squeeze it out. After we've squeezed out the pulp from our bag, we're gonna pour the milk back into our blender. To this mixture, we're gonna add 2 dates with the pits removed, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Next, we're gonna reblend it for another 60 seconds. Then it's gonna be ready to go. We can either chill it and drink it in the morning, or we can serve it hot. It's really good with cinnamon like that. It's smelling like our muffins are ready, so let's give them a check. After they come out of the oven, let them cool for about 10 minutes before popping them out of the tin. So our muffins cook for about 30 to 35 minutes. You can tell they're done when they're a nice golden brown, and when you touch them, your finger bounces back as opposed to sinking into the muffin. You can also do the old knife test and just stick a knife in it and see if it comes out clean. These muffins you can also tell because our crunch part sunk into the middle, so it's going to be kind of a nice gooey middle when you bite into it. It's really good. And there we have it, delicious pumpkin oat crunch muffins and some homemade Brazil cinnamon milk. Eat and enjoy. Join me again next time on the Kitchen Underground.